Okay, I think we'll start now because I think it's quite late. It's 3 minutes past 5. Uh, we'll start now. Okay, so here's the link for today's class. Give it now 1 minute. Okay, and here's the link for today's class. So you can go there and you can download the file.
Sir, did you send it in the chat box?
Not yet, not yet. Just give me a minute. I think we have people joining in now. So we'll just wait for them to settle down. Just give me a minute. Okay. So now I think I'll give you the link for today's class and we'll start. So that's the link for today's class. Please download that file and start with the first question and take 4 minutes to read the question. And then we'll start solving it together. Maybe you could take 7.5 minutes or 8 minutes. It's now 5:04. At 5:11, we'll start with the first question.
Sir, this is RC or comprehension? I mean logical, sir.
No, I think it's RC, right?
Okay.
I'll just make sure I've sent you the right document. Wait, I think it starts with Scientology. It's
Yes,
body
sir.
of beliefs. Yeah.
I got that. Yes, sir.
Okay, we have one new joining. So I think that's the link for today's class. I'll just, yeah. Okay. 2 new joinees. Just give me a minute. Okay. So for the ones who just joined now, here's the link for today's class. Please start with the first question. Okay, for the ones who, okay, just give me a minute. I think there's one more person who's just coming. I think it's because you have college classes or school classes and this, I think this, it's quite hard for you. Okay, so here's the link for the ones who just joined now. Please use that to download today's worksheet. And please start with the first question. If you're not able to access the file, please let me know. I'll email you the worksheet. Okay, for the ones who just joined in, here's the link for today's class. Please access your worksheet for today through that. There's one more person. So I think I'll kind of individually email it to them, so it'll be easier that way. Here's the link for today's class. Any of you isn't able to access the worksheet, kindly let me know. Okay, so we'll start with the first question. Have you all read the passage? All of us have read the passage. Right. We'll start with the first question. Question one is, which of the following conclusions about Scientology can be drawn from what the writer has said in the passage? Okay, so let's go option by option. Any answers?
Sir, I think it's A.
Okay, any other answer?
Might be C.
Okay, C. We have A and C.
So even I think it's C.
Sub B.
Okay. Okay, so we have A, we have B and C. So any other answer? Okay, fine. So let's just see. A. Scientology is based on the science fiction of Ron Hubbard. So they say here that this person, Ron Hubbard, is a science fiction writer, but Scientology itself is based on, it's founded by, with the publication of the book Dianetics, the modern science of mental health, which need not be a work of fiction, right? It could be a non-fiction work. It could be anything. We don't know, and it sounds like a non-fiction work. So it's not based on the science fiction of Ron Hubbard, even though Ron Hubbard himself may have been a science fiction writer, is a science fiction writer. So A is wrong. Scientology is a cult.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah,
Sir, I think it is a science fiction work, sir.
yeah, but we can't infer that from the passage, right?
Okay, on the passage of
Dianetics, the modern
because Dianetics is a science fiction work only, sir.
maybe okay, but the modern science of mental health. It sounds more like the modern science of mental health sounds more like, yeah, maybe you're right. It could be a work of fiction, but we, from the passage, we can't infer that. And also, this sounds more like a work of non-fiction, right? The modern science of mental health.
Sir, because I just googled it now,
Okay,
so I am telling you, that's all.
okay, fine. So, right. So, uh, anyhow, maybe Dianetics is a book, is a character, and maybe the modern science of mental health could be a work of non-fiction. We don't know, but we can't say for sure that this book is a work of fiction, right? It could be a work of non-fiction too. So that is not a conclusion that we can draw from this passage. Scientology is a cult, yeah. They do say that it's a cult here. They say that many people have go so far as to suggest that it's a cult. But is it a conclusion? We don't know.
Sir, but people tell that it's a cult, no, sir. The poet doesn't tell that.
You mean the
I
writer?
mean the author. I'm sorry,
Okay,
the
yeah. So
author.
we can't rule B out. We'll have it in the pipeline. Let's look at C. Scientology is recognized as a religion in some countries, but not in others. Now that's definitely a fact. So we know here that the Church of Scientology was granted tax exemption by US, and therefore it's a religion in US, whereas in places like Canada
Yeah,
and the
in
UK
UK.
and Sweden and Portugal too, it's a religion, but it's not a religion, and it definitely is a fact. That's so far. I think that's the most credible
Appropriate
fact.
option.
Yeah, let's look at D. Scientology actively looks to recruit celebrity followers. Again, we can't infer that. Only a minority of Scientology's adherents reach operating feet in level 3. How about that? So they talk about operating feet in level 3. Why is that wrong? Because they say that some ex-Scientologists have said that the church Scientology only tells its followers about Zenu when they reach the operating feet in level 3. So apparently it's not accessible to people below 3, but that does not necessarily mean that only a minority of its adherents reach that
Yeah,
stage. So I think that
probably
C is the
three. C.
most I think C is the most conclusive answer.
Sir, isn't C a fact, sir?
Yeah, so it's a conclusion, right?
Okay, so we can even choose facts as in conclusions because this was not told by the author, no, sir. It was a fact, no, sir.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
stated
no,
by the
it was also
author.
told by the author, no, so there.
Yeah, it's stated by the author. And see, the thing here is that that's the only logically credible answer that we can go for. We can't say that it's had option A been that Scientology is based on the imagination of Ron Hubbard, then yeah, A would have been right. But because it says science fiction based on the science fiction of this person, we don't know. For example, we don't know if this character Zeno is based on a science fiction work of Ron Hubbard. It could be a different kind of a place.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so I think that C is most from this passage is most conclusive. Okay, so two, from what the writer has said, Which of the following statement is most likely to be true? Okay, for the ones who just joined, here's the worksheet. Please download it, and we're working on the first passage. Okay, from what is from what the writer has said, which of the following is most likely to be true?
Sir, is it B?
Okay, B. Any other answer?
E
Sir,
maybe.
I think C, sir.
Okay, so we have B, C, and E. Okay, so let's see. So A is wrong. Because we only know that Hubbard was succeeded by the current leader. We don't know for sure whether David Miscavige was in any way related to the person. Wrong. So A is wrong. And how about B? Reference to Xenu is easily found online. Okay. So it says here that it can be widely read on the internet, which practicing Scientologists are discouraged from using, that Scientology scriptures make reference to a character named Senu, and therefore it's easily found, right? So I think B is absolutely right. The reference to Zeno is easily found online.
Yes,
So that can that is very. I think that can be inferred from this. Scientologists never go on the internet. That's wrong. That's a bit of an extrapolation, exaggeration. Because what we can find out from this passage is that Scientologists are dissuaded from learning about Zenu from the internet. That doesn't mean that they are discouraged from using the internet at all, right? So the thing is that they shouldn't find out about Zenu from the internet because Zenu is only introduced at the operating fleet in level 3.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, what about the sentence that it attempts to preserve search engines to censor information critical to the church?
Yeah, that's got nothing to do with its users not using the internet.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that the right answer is so far is B. Let's look at the Katie Holmes is a Scientologist. That's wrong because Katie Holmes is married to this person. Okay. Almost every mainstream. See, that's a very good, very close option because when I had gone through this, I had made the mistake of marking E2. It's a very close option because you may think that okay, for the ones who just joined, here's the worksheet. Oh, just a minute. Okay. So for the ones who just joined, here's the worksheet. So please download that. Okay. So it's a very close option because you may have thought that if Scientology is being given the status of a religion, then most mainstream religions should be given tax exemption, but that can't be inferred from this passage. See, what I thought was if Scientology itself is being given tax exempt, then most mainstream religions should be given tax exempt. But we can't infer that, right? So you could have all kinds of prejudices, and therefore between B and E, I think B is more credible. So E is very close. Okay. The question number 3: which of the following statements, if true, would weaken the argument that Scientology is a cult?
Sir, I
Before
think it's A.
okay, we have A. Just give me a moment.
yes, sir.
Okay.
A.
We have A. We have E.
Sir, E.
Any other answer?
Sir, E.
Okay. A is close, but let's see. See, they say that many people go as far as to suggest that it's a cult. Why? On the basis that it brainwashes and extorts its followers. Okay, and then what they say? This is because it is impossible to ascend the ranks of a church of Scientology without paying cash to advance through the various levels, which range from clear to operating feet in level 15. So they say it's a cult because unless you make donations, you can't kind of progress, you know. So and therefore it's a kind of cult which demands donations. Now let's look at the options. You say that option A, senior Scientologists claim they have not been brainwashed. Very close. Senior Scientologists have not paid any money to the Church of England. I think between A and B, B is a more powerful option. It's a more credible option. Let's look at C. Scientology is granted tax exempt in over 20 countries. Just because it's given tax exempt, we can't claim that it's not a cult based on the argument here in the passage as to why it is a cult, right? So in the passage they say it's a cult because they extort money, and unless you make donations, you can't ascend the ranks, right? So it's not just it's not just devotion or intellectual or aesthetic merit. You've got to make donations if you want to ascend. So that's why it's called a cult. So just because it's being given tax exemption in over 20 countries, it does not make it a cult. If you were to strictly adhere to the kind of rationale that's being given in this passage, that's been forwarded in this passage, right? So C can't be an answer. Let's look at the Scientology does not ban followers from
Sir?
using. Yeah.
So what does cult mean here?
See, cult could mean so many things, but let's just finish this, and I'll come back to that. Let's see D. Scientology does not ban followers from using the internet. I think that does not make it a cult, right? Yeah, it does not. That may be true, but it could still be a cult. The UK recognizes Scientology as a religion. So even if that is true, um, see, cult could mean so many things. Cult could be, we could say that a certain band has a cult followers, which means that it's a kind of a cult, which means that many people like it, or it falls into a genre of its own. But cult could also mean a group where they practice all kinds of, where they have their own practices. You know, they have, yeah.
When I googled it, it is showing that a type of religion or religious group, especially one that is considered unusual. So it is probably unusual from other religions.
Possibly, yeah. But cult could also have, a kind of a fan following of art, for cult art and all that. But here, from the point of view of this particular passage, we should stick to this passage. They say it's a cult because it brainwashes and extorts. Between brainwashing and extorting, I think that the focus is laid on the extorting part, because they go on to say that it's impossible to ascend the ranks of a Church of Scientology without making cash to advance through the various levels, which range from clear to operating feet in level 15. So the focus is on making donations and extorting money. So I
So the
think
E
that,
statement is false, no, sir?
yeah, he's not as, I mean, he's not false. See, they're all correct to various levels, but I think that the most appropriate answer is from this passage is B.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So why isn't it A, sir? Because the only if a person is brainwashed, he'll go ahead to pay any money for getting his respective religion, no, sir. If he is not at all brainwashed, why will he go ahead with paying money?
See, it need not be brainwashing. See, it could be a willing donation. See, they say here that Tom Cruise is a member. So don't tell me that Tom Cruise got brainwashed. It could have been a willing donation. So, I mean, can you say that I pay tax because I'm brainwashed? It could be a willing or donation, right? or let's say you make some, you give some money to a political party. You can't call it brainwashing. Not necessarily brainwashing, right? So it's a willing donation. So it's called a cult. So you must stick to why it's called a cult. It's called a cult because unless you make, unless you pay money, you can't advance to the various levels, which range and all that. So unless without paying cash, it's impossible to ascend the ranks of the church without paying cash to advance through the ranks.
Sure,
So
but
that's
here
just
they're
mark that.
paying money. Here they're paying money to get through these various levels, no, sir?
Yeah, so that could be a kind of yeah, so that doesn't matter. See, brainwashing is just one thing. So between A and B are more appropriate, are both appropriate. So now you must think of it from the examiner's point of view. What does the examiner want you to do? Between A and B, which do you think is more appropriate from the point of view of this passage? That is called a cult. Is it just because they're being brainwashed? You could say everybody is being brainwashed, right? All of us are being brainwashed. So it's quite possible that you don't know that you're being brainwashed, but you're still being brainwashed. So it's not just the brainwashing, but the fact that you're going one step ahead and actually making monetary donations.
Okay,
I
sir.
think that is kind of more powerful. So I think that's going to be the answer. Right. So now let's go to 4. Assuming that what the writer has said in the passage is true, which of the following statements are also true? Yeah?
Sir, the answer for the third one then?
Oh, this one, yeah, I think that's it's going to be B.
B. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. B for bucket. Okay. So question 4, assuming what the writer has said in the passage is true, which of the following statements are also true?
Maybe A.
A.
Yes, sir. A.
Very good. Okay, fine. A. Because we know that Tom Cruise has, okay, I think there's some noise from someone. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, we know that Tom Cruise has, who ranks as an operating fleet in level 7. And whereas here they say that at every stage you've got to make some kind of a cash advance. And so he must have made some kind of a donation. That is true. Ron Hubbard died. No, we just know that this person, miscarriage, took over. But he may not have died. There are many Scientologists in Spain. We only know that in Spain it's kind of considered to be a religion, right? Scientology is also a religion in countries like Sweden, Spain, and Portugal. Now, that does not mean that there are many followers of it. At least it can't be, it need not be true. Canada and UK have the same tax system. That's false, because again, that just because Canada and UK do not kind of give Scientology a status of a religion, that doesn't mean that they have the same tax exemption tax system. Scientology remains a minority religion in the UK. It's not even a religion in the UK, right? They say here that in the UK it's not even given the status of religion, so it can't be a minority religion. So E is false in A, and therefore A is the right answer. Very good.
A is the right answer.
Very good. Okay, how about 5?
Sir, I think C. In the context of which it is used, what could be the word espionage mean? I think it's C, acquiring undisclosed information.
Sir, I think it's D. Trafficking.
Okay, we have D for duck, and we have C. Okay, espionage literally means
A, sir.
Okay, violence. Okay, espionage. Yeah, violence is very tempting because domestic and violence are now very closely linked. They become kind of collations in our mind, so we tend to think A. But the word espionage literally means acquiring undisclosed information. So if you, so I kind of strongly dissuade you from Googling in the middle of a class. But if you did, you would find that espionage literally means that. And domestic espionage means the same thing happening at a local level, meaning, see, there are two kinds of espionage. Espionage, like I said, means spying. Espionage is kind of spying. So there's international espionage and domestic espionage. Domestic espionage means kind of spying on your own country. And international espionage is spying on a foreign country. For example, you could have Russian espionage, which means a Russian trying to gather undisclosed information from, say, an American or European government. Or it could be domestic espionage, which is a citizen trying to acquire undisclosed information from his or her own country. So that's what domestic espionage means. And the answer is C, which means acquiring undisclosed information. Okay. Right. So the answer is C. And I think this is like a GK question. You either know it or you don't. So the word espionage, maybe you can make a note of it. The word espionage means spying or gathering undisclosed information from either a domestic or a foreign government. So the answer is C. Okay, so now we can take another 8 minutes and we'll start with question 2. So it's now 5:34. At 5:42, we'll start with question 2. Okay, for the ones who've joined, I'll just let you have the worksheet for today. Please download it, and we'll do the second question now. Please start with the second passage. I'm sorry, the second passage. So please start with that passage. Okay, so we'll start with question 6 here. Okay, so seeing color, the writer claims, is now recognized as what? As being what?
Sir, I think D, no more than an optical illusion.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other? Any other answer? This is quite a tricky passage because you have to read. Okay, I
Sir,
think for the
A.
ones who Just give me a minute. For the ones who just joined now, I think we have stage. So here's the worksheet. Please download that. We're doing the second passage. Okay.
Excuse me,
So
sir.
yeah.
So, how is this pronounced, sir? Goethe?
Oh, that's Goethe. It's pronounced. It's pronounced Goethe.
Okay. Is Goethe the author here, sir?
No, I don't think so. Right? See, uh, read the. Okay, I'll tell you what. We'll come back to the first question after we do the later questions, and then I think you'll be able to answer the question more effectively. Don't worry about it. We'll come back to this question. Let's go to 7. Okay.
Goethe.
Okay. So, okay. So the modern theory of color vision depends on the modern theory. So we're
Sir, I
talking
think
about the.
C.
Okay, let's see. Let's go option by option. Classical theories of mixing colored light. That's wrong, right? So that's what this classical theory of mixing colored lights is what Newton came up with. So he thought that color was purely a function of wavelength. And for example, Newton has shown that if one mixed um, colored lights, for example, orange and yellow, one obtains something intermediate. So something like mixing, say, milk and jaggery. So it becomes milk is white and liquid jaggery is dark brown. So when you mix milk and jaggery, it becomes something like light brown, right? So that's what Newton thought, and then that has been disproved, and we now know that perception of color is different. It's more complicated than that. So the classical theories of mixing colored lights, which is what Newton came up with, that's the wrong answer. So that's not what the modern theory says. Edwin Land's experiments with colored filters. Very hard to rule out. We'll have it in the pipeline. Okay, we can't rule that out. The brain's recognition of light's different wavelengths.
Yes,
Again,
sir.
here I think I have a problem with the word wavelength. Okay, it's not wavelength. I'm not very sure about wavelength
Yes, sir.
because wavelength somehow is kind of associated with what Newton's thought was. See, optical illusion. He was intensely aware that there was not any simple equivalence of wavelength and color.
Yes, sir. They are telling it's not about wavelength.
Probably not. So I'm not very sure about C, but B is quite a robust option. Let's look at a comparison of recorded lightness levels in the brain. I think D is a very robust answer. Let's look at E, the perception of color by different receptors in the retina. So I think we have to answer this question more effectively. I think we have to read the last paragraph, right? So here, the last part of it. So here we see that Land showed that colors are not perceived in isolation. A scene is not an aggregate of colored points. There is instead a complete surveying of the scene as a whole and a minute comparison of and correlation of the sensations from each part. Okay, this involves first an extraction of colored separation images, records of lightness and darkness of each part of the scene as transmitted by the three different color receptors in the retina. So the retina just transmits. It's not. It just transmits. It's not in any way. Let's look at what option E says. Option E says the perception. It does not perceive. It just transmits. It's just like a filter, right? It's not. It plays no role of perception, right? So E is a wrong answer. Okay, and let's continue. And then a comparison of these three likeness records in the brain. We could even highlight that for our convenience. So that's the modern theory. It says that the brain plays a very crucial part. It kind of does some kind of it compares likeness records, and it's a brain's act of comparing these records that form the basis of our inference or judgment of color. So I'll again mark that. So that's the crucial part. So thus it is only
D.
now. So from this we can infer that this is the modern theory, right? So that's what the modern theory of perception of color is. And therefore, even though B is very close, Edwin Land, maybe he kind of um, he kind of uh, he kind of triggered a curiosity that may have led to this, but his experiment with lights, his experiment here, it may have had a triggering effect, but we can't say that that is what the modern theory is. So I think D, a comparison of recorded lightness levels in the brain,
Yes, sir.
is the most appropriate answer. It's a very tricky question, but D is the right answer. So, okay. Right. Let's go to 8. Goethe realized that his observation of colored shadows.
Sir, I think C, needed an advance in psychophysics.
Let's see. Let's go option by option. Represented a physiological mystery. Were okay. B, were inexplicable by current theories. Needed an advance in psychophysics. Okay. Suggested a mental theory of color. Meant color was a simple suggestion. But see, if you say C, how can you say B is less correct? What inexplicable? Okay, what inexplicable? Say with current theories. Okay, if you say that if they were inexplicable with current theory, then how can you say that they needed an advance is less correct? Right? So we can't say that, right? So we don't know. We don't know that if this is the answer, then if C is right, then even if C is right, then B should be slightly more correct. So because you can't have both B and C as correct, so logically both B and C are wrong. But let's just go back and let's look at what this has to offer. So Goethe considered colored shadows to be the sort of illusion which prompted him to say optical illusion is optical truth. He was intensely aware that there was not any simple equivalence of wavelength and color as Newton thought, and felt that color was not a simple sensation but an inference or an act of judgment. Feeling this intuitively, but wholly ignorant of what physiological mechanisms could allow such an inference, Goethe made a great error. He bypassed physiology, made a mystical leap to the mind, and proposed an entirely mental or subjective theory or a pseudo theory of color. Theory or pseudo theory of color. Let's mark that. So he kind of completely subjective theory or a completely mental theory. He seemed to have suggested that um, seeing color was wholly subjective. So option A is what Goethe would have said, right? So Goethe realized that his observation of colored shadows suggested a mental theory of color. So that's what Goethe thought. He thought that purely mental theory. He thought that it was a purely subjective theory, right? And not something. It was not purely physical. It was not just a mixing up of wavelengths, as Newton seems to have suggested. Okay, so the right answer is D. Question 9. Which of the following may be ascertained from the passage? Okay, so option A, had the needed advances in physiology and psychophysics been done, been made, would have been more appropriate, been made during Goethe's time, Goethe's days, he would have been able to offer objective explanation to the phenomena of color. Is that right?
So we can consider that, sir.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not very obvious. We don't really know. There are
We
so
don't
many
really know
factors.
that if we would really
Because
go
there are
ahead
so
with
many
that.
factors because you don't even know what kind of a person Goethe was. Was he an artist or was he a scientist? We don't know anything. We just know that he was interested in the phenomena of color, but we don't know as to what his background was. Right?
So what was the previous answer?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So the previous answer is D.
Okay.
suggested a mental theory of light, color. Sure. So let's look at this. So we can't be very sure of that. So Land must have become doubtful of Newton's belief of simple equivalence of wavelengths of color only after he'd been exposed to the theories of Goethe on colored shadows. We again we don't know. It may have been sparked through a personal experience that he had with color. We don't know. So B again is wrong. B is wrong. I think A and B I think are equally wrong. Let's look at C. The theory of color separation and the formation of lightness records in the brain was first proposed by Zeki. See, all three of these are very possible. See, we know that it is only now with the dazzling demonstration of Land and the physiological work of Zeki, who has shown the area of the brain where such inferences are made. That Goethe. So he's shown that this person Zeki, he or she, they have shown that they've shown that inferences are made at certain areas of the brain, but we still don't know if color separation theory was made by Zeki. So even C, we can't be very sure. All three are doubtful, and they're equally doubtful. So I think that we can go for option D. None of A, B, or C. I think that should be the answer. What does still life refer to? So here they talk about still life. So Land repeated this, but he used colored light to project black and white transparencies of a still life.
Sir, can you please tell the eighth answer, sir?
Sure. Option 8 is D.
D. Okay, sir. Thank you.
D for dark.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So still life here. Again, I think this is a kind of a GK-like question. A still life is a painting or a drawing or a photograph of a still object, like a bowl of fruits or a bird sitting, sleeping, something that is still and not likely to move. There's no suggestion of dynamics. So a painting that doesn't suggest dynamics. So sometimes you look at a painting and you feel that it's going to move. But any painting that is still, like a bowl of fruits.
Sir, even a sculpture is still no, sir.
Yeah, a sculpture is still, but a still life refers to this. A still life does not refer to a sculpture. It could be that, but it's a still life is mostly a painting or a drawing or something like that. So between A and B, I think B is more likely to be a right answer. So a still life is more likely to be a painting rather than a sculpture. Okay, so I think you can now go to the third passage and take 8 minutes. It's now 5:56. We start at 6:04.
So 10th answer is B.
10th answer is B. B for bucket. See, a still life is a work of.
The sixth one, did we?
Yeah.
So I don't think we did the sixth one. You said we'll start with the seventh.
Oh yeah, right. Thank you very much for that. Okay. So now can you go back to 6? Now that thank you very much. Yeah. So now that we've done all that, can you go back to 6?
Sir, it is B, sir.
Okay, pseudo means fraudulent, or half. So now that we've done all that, and now that we've seen what the modern theory states, and we know the writer's view. For example, the writer says that it's not. See, option A is wrong, right? Because it's a wholly subjective phenomena, and this is what Goethe believed. And this person, the writer, says that it's a great error. So it can't be the answer. It can't be a wholly subjective phenomena, right? So we can rule that out. And what are we left with? A pseudo-scientific. Pseudo means half. Again, that is not what the writer said. This person believes it's wholly scientific. So again, that's wrong. and explicable physiological phenomena. Okay, we can't rule C out.
Sir,
C is,
excuse me, sir.
yeah.
Sir, referring to B, sir, the author at last has confirmed that Gota's insights have been confirmed. So I think he supports Gota's insights.
See, the insights are different and theories are different, right? Insight is just a guess that you make. A theory is when you're absolutely sure.
Okay.
So
Okay,
we just,
sir.
yeah. So C is an explicable physiological phenomenon. We can't rule C out. Let's go to D. No more than an optical illusion. Again, that's just absurd. And E, a mysterious influence in the brain. I think that's between C and E, an explicable physiological phenomena and a mysterious influence in the brain. So between these two, I think that we
Sir, it
can.
is C, I
Uh,
think, sir.
yeah, I think we can see. Although it says, see, this involves first an extraction of colored separation of images recorded and all that, and then it's transmitted to the brain. Light records. It is the brain's act of comparing these free records that forms the basis of our inference or judgment. There's still an inference or judgment that we make. So there's still an element of mystery involved, but it happens in the brain. There's still, for example, we don't know as to, see, this only says that every image is split into three parts, three colors, and that's the job of the retina. And then these three, and then the brain forms a kind of likeness record. But we still don't know why we judge or why we infer. So there is an element of mystery involved. And this person Zeki, and we're still working on it. This person Zeki, he has shown that the area of the brain where such inferences are made. So still a work in progress. So I would say that E is the right answer. A mysterious influence in the brain is still, so seeing color is still a mysterious influence in the brain. There is an element of mystery which can't be ruled out, but it's still something that's happening in the brain. And how we are able to link the 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 lightness record to a judgment of color is still mysterious. It's still a thing that we are working on. Right. So I think E is the most suitable answer here. Right. So now we can start with, thank you for reminding me. Now we can start with question, the third passage, and it's now 6:1. We'll start at 6:10. Okay, so I think we'll start with the first question. I think it's a slightly long passage, and I think that's because the first passage is very short, so it kind of makes up. See, this is just it's just 400 words, as you can see here. So this kind of makes up for that. Okay, so let's start with question number 11. Which of the following is not true to the Renaissance art? Any answers? Okay, let's go option by option. Option A, a remarkable feature of Renaissance art was the heightened interaction between patron and artist. That can be inferred, right? So they say right here that had a passion for the art. So they had a passion. Commissions came from king, popes, princes, nobles, and low-born mercenary captains. So leaders commissioned portraits of themselves, of scenes, of their accomplishments, such as successful battles, and of illustrious ancestors. All of that, right? So that cannot that certainly is that is true. So it's not the answer, right? B. Such art was designed to celebrate and impress. Again, even that because they talk about the humanist. So humanists are people who believe that human beings are important, that human beings are a kind of superior race, and um, yeah. So I think that's what the humanists are, and we can kind of infer that that they did celebrate. It was celebratory in nature. It certainly was celebratory in nature, right? And so men and women of social levels had an appetite of many social levels had an appetite for art. That is true. So we know that we know that poor people had some devotional things built for themselves, right? So we know that see, the wealthy merchant wanted a painting of Jesus, Mary, or the saints with small portraits of members of his family praying to them for his home. A noble might provide funding to decorate a chapel and all that, and members of the middle classes and probably the working classes wanted small devotional paintings. So we know that across classes there was a demand for art, right? So that is true as well. Option number D. Stimulated by the ancients, Renaissance artists were the first in European history to write extensively about art and themselves. So, stimulated by the ancients, Renaissance artists were the first in European history to write extensively about art and themselves. I think that is true as well, right? So they say here that so the ancient world of Rome and Greece, as interpreted by the humanists, greatly influenced Renaissance art. And artists and humanists studied the surviving buildings and monuments, read ancient treatises available for the first time, and imbibed the humanist emphasis plus the habit of sharp criticism of medieval styles. Okay, and they and see, and then that's kind of immediately followed by this sentence here. They say that Leon Battista wrote treatises on painting and on architecture. Giorgio Vasari, this person wrote about the lives of artists, was a series of biographies of and all that. So I think that this was the first attempt in European history to kind of capture that. That's okay. The social and intellectual positions of artists did not change in the Renaissance. That's wrong. Because they say that, see, this whole paragraph talks about that. So the artist began as a craftsman, occupying a relatively low social position, and then they slowly grew, and then he became self-conscious creator of original works and a person who conversed with humanists and negotiated with kings and popes. And some successful artists enjoyed wealth and honors, such as knighthood of this person on teaching, right? So there was growth. So I think that is wrong. That option is wrong. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. Question number 12. Which of the following is not a logical thought in the view of the writer in the 8th paragraph? So the 8th paragraph is there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This paragraph, right? So it's not a logical thought. Okay. So let's just read it and see. A logical thought could be viewed as logical inference. A logical inference, right? You could think of it as logical inference. So the question is, the following can't be inferred from the passage. So we'll just mark that, the 8th paragraph, and we'll see. Option A, Renaissance was a variegated society. What does variegated mean? Variegated means many stratas, right? So there are many, that is true, right? They talk about it was variegated. So there are so many stratas. There's the middle class, the mercenary low-born, the nobles, and then there are the kings and the queens. So that's certainly is right. It's not the option. Okay. So option B, it was an age. It was an age of conspicuous consumption of great imbalance and great imbalances of wealth. Conspicuous means obvious, right? Conspicuous, I think the word inconspicuous would be more familiar to you. So conspicuous, if you haven't heard the word before, you could make a note of it. Conspicuous means kind of done in an obvious way. So if you haven't come across this word before, please make a note of it. That's conspicuous, okay? Okay. So and option B states that it was an age of conspicuous consumption and great imbalance of wealth. Even that is true. C. Renaissance society also provided social services for the less fortunate. That is true. Because they had all these charity works, right? So they had imbalances, they had civic charitable institutes that provided for orphans, the sick, the hungry, and people who had syphilis and all that, right? So, yeah, social mobility was rampant. How about that? Are we able to figure that out, that social mobility was rampant? Social mobility is the ability to grow from one class to the other, right? And rampant means something that's everywhere, right? Rampant means everybody has social mobility. I don't think that's true. They
Sir,
say,
yeah, it's D, right?
yeah, it's D. Because they say that artists had social mobility. Some artists had, see, for example, the artist began as a craftsman occupying a relatively low social position, and then they kind of grew. And some artists did make it. So some artists did have a kind of social mobility, but in general, we can't really make that comment about the Renaissance society in general, right? So I think D is the right answer. Very
So
good.
what is the meaning of variegated?
Variegated is how do we put it? See, the word comes from variety, right? So variegated means there's a wide range of variety.
Okay, so everything is mixed.
Yeah, mixed up.
Okay, sir.
Very good. Yeah, right. So the answer is D. Very good. Okay.
For the 11th one, what's the answer?
Yeah, for 11, I think it's E.
E, sir. Okay, thank you.
It was E, right? The social and intellectual. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think 11 is E and 12 is D. And let's look at 13 now slowly. Okay. So
Sir,
yeah.
so I have other class at 6:30, so
Yeah.
can
Sure.
I
All the best. All the best and happy festival. Bye.
thank you, sir. Same to
Bye.
you, sir.
Thank you. Bye. Okay. So 14 is which of the following shares a cause and effect relation. So cause and effect is you have a cause and then there's a consequence.
So is it B?
B for bucket. Let's see. Uh, so okay. So option A says talks about the rebirth of Renaissance and the onset of Protestant Reformation. The two have no relationship, right? Now we know from this passage that the Protestant thing happened because of Martin Luther. So Martin Luther kind of yeah. So see, Martin Luther led to that, right? So Luther's disagreement with the church, that's what led to the Protestants. It got nothing to do with the Renaissance art in general or the rebirth of Renaissance. It's mostly the fact that this person was kind of discontented with the fact that the church was a corrupt place. So A is wrong. Authority of Romantic Church and Protestantism. Again, I'm not very sure because they say that they say here that it's split into that. And why did that happen? That happened because of this person, mainly chiefly because of Luther's disagreement with the church, and ultimately led him to challenge some of the most fundamental doctrines of the church, which in turn led him and his followers to break away from the Catholic Church in protest, and hence they were known as Protestants. So we don't know if it because of the authority of the church, because some doctrines, right? So doctrines could be some rules, some tenets, not authority necessarily. So we can't really be very sure about B2. Let's look at C. Reformation movement, birth of two warring clans. That's interesting because the Reformation movement that started here, the Reformation seemed to reject the medieval form of Christianity. And in the early 16th century, the German monk Martin Luther reacted against church corruption, the sort depicted, for example, by Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. Okay, that's yeah. So that could be an answer. We'll see. So option C, Reformation movement and the birth of two warring clans could be an answer. What happened in the pipeline? C, option D. Option D is institution of church, the institution of the church, and Martin Luther's attack on church. Not a very cause and effect kind of a thing because see, this is not really a cause. The institution of church is not really a cause. It's more of a state of being. It's more of a state of being and less of a cause. So the institution of a church is a state of being. Whereas here, the Reformation movement is a movement. It's definitely a cause. It could have an effect. So between C and D, I think that C is more appropriate. But let's move on to E. Rejection of Pope and Protestantism. So between again, I think between C and E, I think C is more. It kind of encapsulates E. So I think C could be the right answer. Okay. Now question 14. Which of the following can be considered as a Renaissance work? Now this is quite tricky.
So can you please explain C again, sir?
Yeah. So C is so we're looking at cause and effect. So the cause here could be the whole Reformation movement, and the effect is the birth of two warring clans.
Sir, but Reformation movement wants to make things right, no, sir.
Yeah, but that led to the two warring clans.
Oh, okay, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Which is the Protestant and Catholic.
Catholics. Yeah, right. Very good. Okay. Now let's look at where were we? Yeah, 14. Which of the following can be considered as a Renaissance art work? Okay, so we know that their focus was on humanness, right? They are very human people. So more than once they talk about humanists. They say that the ancient world of Roman Greek, as interpreted by the humanists, greatly influenced the Renaissance art. And then they say even here that they don't define what humanists are. They say even here that yeah, the artist began as a craftsman, and then this person met, and then they conversed with humanists and negotiated with kings and popes. And at any rate, they did converse with humanists. So humanists are probably people who kind of focus on the importance of the human being, maybe anthropocentric people. We don't know. Maybe that. So now let's look at option A, vivid and verbatim description of the encounters in a battlefield. Verbatim is verbatim is a kind of an obedient report, not an interpretation. Okay, it's just a blind report. Okay, so option B, a comprehensive explanation of the Grecian terracotta figurines. You can't rule that out. A is doubtful, B is doubtful too. Between A and B, I don't really know. C, a somber narrative of a humble man standing in the social ladder. I don't think C is right because, as we know, that their focus seems to they were quite critical of medieval Christianity.
Excuse me,
But
sir.
yeah,
Sir, I have a class now, so could I leave?
yeah, sure. All the best. And happy
Thank you,
festival.
sir.
Yeah, bye,
Happy
bye.
Diwali.
Same to you. Yeah, bye,
Yeah, bye.
bye. Yeah. Okay. So a comprehensive explanation of the Grecian terracotta figurines. Yeah, and a somber narrative. I think C is going to be wrong. C is wrong because they seem to have focused on devotional stuff mostly rather than the common man. Okay, an article or treatise of marketplace thronged by commoners and elites. Again, this was not um, the focus of a Renaissance artist. So they weren't really looking at commonplace at all. A treatise on the incredible discovery of microscope and telescope. So A, B, and E are all equally viable. But what do you think could be the more appropriate answer? It's quite tricky. And I think you must take into consideration the fact that they really focus on humanists. So they're really interested in human advancement, human theory, and all that.
Sir, I think it's A.
Yeah, sir.
Sir, because they have even mentioned some people asking artists of, creating a pic of their achievements in the battlefield, I guess.
Hmm. Right, but we don't know about the vivid and verbatim. How about that? That we can't be very sure.
So, what does that mean in this context?
Vivid is very particular details. Everything is brought in, and verbatim is one to one. It's there's no interpretation and all that. That we don't know because for all we know, it could have been just an approximate interpretation where features are exemplified. For example, the king may have been a bald person. He may have been quite fat, but the king may be portrayed as a very handsome young man with a full head of hair and tall and thin. So that could have been the case, right? So we
Sir,
can't.
it's there in the first, I think the second para, sir.
Yeah,
Leaders commission portraits of themselves, of scenes of their accomplishments such as
yeah, their
battles.
accomplishment, but it need not be verbatim and vivid.
Okay.
Yeah, like they did have their portraits made, but it need not have been verbatim and vivid. It could have been subject to interpretations. So we don't know very surely about A, and B, a comprehensive explanation of Grecian terracotta figurines. I don't think that they could have even gotten hold. So I think that A and B are both kind of approximate. I think E, on the ground that they seem to have focused greatly on on the humanist side. So they may have written a long because see, they say here that these people were they wrote treatises on paintings and on architecture, and this person tried to record the biographies of Renaissance artists, accompanied by his many comments about artists. So there was a great passion towards human activity, human achievement. So maybe an incredible discovery of microscope and a telescope. It may have captured their imagination, and they may have written a treatise on that. So I think among the options, E seems to be the most appropriate. It's very hard. I accept. It's not easy. Okay, 15. The sentence marked in red may have an error. Identify the same. Let's go. Okay. Finally,
So is it D?
D is none of these, right?
Sir, is it D?
So for this question, for
No,
this
sir. I am
question,
asking the previous one, the 14.
14. 14 is E. E for
E.
elephant.
Okay,
Yeah,
sir.
E for elephant. Now let's look at 15 now. Finally, as it was developed during the Renaissance, the Protestant Reformation was a movement that had profound implications, not only for the modern world in general, but specifically for literary history. So where do you think a mistake could be? Read them closely. Read every sentence twice and see where the mistake could be. Some grammatical mistake.
Sir, should it have been specifically for the literary history?
No, that's okay. For literary history in general is fine. So it's not. So what V does it's a kind of an identifier, right? It says that it's that particular. Whereas your literary history is general
Okay,
literary.
sir.
That's okay. How about this first sentence? Finally, as it was developed during the Protestant Reformation was a movement that had a profound implications. So can it be finally as it was developed? It could have been as it had been developed or as it developed, simply as it developed, right? As it was developed. Can you say was developed?
No, sir.
Yeah, you could say was had been developing or was developing because was has an implication of continuous, right? Whereas here it's a simple past, developed a simple past. So you could just say finally as it developed during the Renaissance, the Protestant Reformation. So was shouldn't have been there. The was is wrong. So the first sentence is wrong. So I think option A. Great. Okay. So I think we'll spend the next. I think the next passages are quite short. It shouldn't take you a long time. I think we'll start with option 4, question 4, and it's now 6:37. We'll start at
So we're skipping the 15th one.
15. 15 is one.
15 is one. Okay, okay.
Option A. Yeah. So question 4. Yeah, I think the short passage is just 495 words. So I think we'll do that in 8 minutes. So now 6:37. We'll start at 6:46. Okay, so I think we'll start with 16. I think it's quite straightforward. So, in the author's opinion, the shift in thinking in 1970s does what? I think they talk about that here. They say that since the 1970s, depression has come to be viewed as a cognitive or neurological defect in the individual and never a consequence of circumstances, right? So that's the thing we're looking for. So let's look at what the options here are. So, in the author's opinion, the shift in thinking in the 1970s introduced greater stress into people's life as they were expected to be responsible for their own happiness. I think that can't be ruled out. We go to option B, was a welcome change from the earlier view that depression could be cured by changing circumstances. Not a welcome change, right? It's not welcome. So they say that it's not a good thing because it become a personal project. Okay. So put people in touch with their own feelings rather than depending on psychologists. Not really, right? Reflected the emergence of neuroscience as the authority of on human emotions. Again, that's not right. I think that's okay. Reflected the emergence of neuroscience as yeah. Okay. So yeah. So I think that that could be the answer. I think that between A and D, what do you think the answer could be?
So D.
Reflected
Sir, I
neuroscience.
think it's A.
Okay.
Sir, I think
Okay.
it's A.
Okay. D is roundabout. You could say because they don't talk about neuroscience here. They say that depression is a neurological defect in the individual and never a consequence of circumstances. Reflected as the emergence of neuroscience as the authority on human emotions. I don't know. I think D is roundabout, but A is more immediate. All of this all of this simply escalate the sense of responsibility because, yeah, see, all of this simply escalates a sense of responsibility each of us feels for our own feelings, and with it, the sense of failure when things go badly, right? I think when you, in light of this, I think that A is more appropriate. Right. Now let's move on to the next question. So the author's view would be undermined by which of the following findings? Right. So there is a definitive move towards the adoption of wearable technology that taps into emotions. That's what the writer says. That the writer says that this is a whole emerging market that's providing these equipments that are able to tap into our emotions. I don't think it will really undermine a proliferation of gyms that are collecting data on consumer well-being. Again, a proliferation is a widespreading spread out. Again, I don't think that that really undermines per se. I don't think it really undermines exactly. Let's go to see
So,
individuals. Yeah,
so what is the answer for the previous one, sir?
16. 16 is A.
Yes, sir. A.
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
16. Yeah. Okay.
I just wanted to confirm. Yes, sir.
Okay. So individuals worldwide are utilizing technologies to monitor and increase their well-being. Okay. So stakeholders globally are moving away from collecting data on the well-being of individuals. So even if you don't read the question, do you feel that D is the only odd man out? Because A, B, and C seem to suggest a kind of collection of data or tapping into private spaces, whereas D is the only option that says that stakeholders globally are moving away from that. So even if you don't really know anything, you should be able to figure out that this is the odd man out, and therefore this has got to be the right answer, right? So, and even so, it does undermine because the writer says that there is a sudden growth in this. That's the whole idea of the passage, right? They say that economists, the whole happiness and the measuring happiness, the fact that you can measure happiness, and the fact that wearable technologies are doing this, that's the whole essence of the passage. It's a central topic. So if D is right, then that's going to be undermined. Okay. Now option question 18. According to the author, Dubai does what? Now I think I'll have you answer this.
Sir, is it A?
Very good. Any other answer?
Sir, D.
Yeah. Any other answer? See, I had marked D too because D is so tempting, right? I think that the examiner is just playing a trick on you. See, if you look at A, so the question is, according to the author, Dubai does what? It develops sophisticated technology. I was lazy to go back and read, and so I kind of marked D. But if you just go back to where Dubai is mentioned and patiently just go through it, you'll see that cities such as Dubai, which has pledged to become the happiest city, it's not on the way, it just pledged, dream up ever more elaborate and intrusive ways of collecting data on well-being, to the point where there is now talk of using CCTV cameras to monitor facial expressions in public spaces. So that's what we should focus on. So Dubai develops sophisticated technologies to monitor its inhabitants' states of mind is absolutely right. Incentivizes companies that prioritizes work welfare. No, they don't talk about that. Collaborates with Facebook. Again, that's not right. Is on its way to becoming one of the world's happiest cities. We don't know if it's on the way. We only know that it has pledged. It
Sir,
has
but
pledged to
saying
become.
pledged is also like they're trying to become the happiest city in the world.
No, they have promised that they're going to be the happiest city in the world. I mean, even India could do that, right? So they could just promise that they're going to be the happiest city in the world. Now, that does not mean that they're on the path for becoming the happiest city in the world. I think there is a small difference between pledging to become something and being on the way of becoming. Because in the author's view, they are not on the way of being the happiest city in the world, right? Because they are not giving because they're monitoring their citizens too closely. Yeah, so that's a tricky question, and I think that the answer is A. I made a mistake there, and I think that the answer is A. I think I marked the rest were okay, but I think I made a mistake there. So A, very good. So A is the right answer. Right. So okay. Now 19. So 19 says, according to the author, so wearable technologies and social media are contributing most to.
Sir,
I
is
think
it
this is
B?
very good. Any other answer? I think again this is quite tricky. Okay, so 19 and 20.
Sir,
I
I
think.
think it's A.
Okay, yeah, between A and B is very close, but I think that B is kind of more encompassing. But never mind. I think I'll let you work on it. So 19 and 20, I'll leave it for later. I think you can work it out, and you can probably WhatsApp me, or you could email me. And I hope you have my email ID. I'll just uh, let you have it again. I'll chat. Now I think we can start with question number 5. We'll start with 5 because we have no time. I think we'll start with 5. So I think I've given you my email ID and my WhatsApp number, so you can contact me later. So now I think we just finished fine. Okay, have you all read the passage, all of us?
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
yeah. Uh, let's start with the first question then. So the Emory University experiment with mice points to the to what?
B, acquired characteristics.
Very good. I think D is quite tempting because you could go with fear, but they say right here that that is not supposed to happen. Generation of school children have been taught that the inheritance of acquired characteristics is impossible. So that is what it showed, right? It showed the inheritance of acquired characteristics, not just fear. Fear is just one of the many acquired characteristics. It could have been the other way too. So very good. So I think the option is B, although D was quite titillating. Okay, fine. So question number 22. Which of the following best describes the author's argument?
C.
C, can we be very sure of that? Let's see. Uh, Darwin's and Mendel's theory together best explain evolution. Let's just go to that part of the paragraph. I'm assuming that you've all read it. So they say here that so where do they talk about? So where do they talk about Mendel? Let's see. So they say that modern evolutionary biology dates back to the synthesis of that emerged around the 1940s and 60s, which married Darwin's mechanisms of natural selection with Mendel's discovery of how genes are inherited. So the traditional and still dominant view is that adaptations from the human brain to the peacock's tail are fully and satisfactorily explained by natural selection and subsequent inheritance. Yet new evidence from genomics and epigenetics and developmental biology indicate that evolution is more complex than we once assumed. It's more complex than we once assumed. That's all we know, right? And then it says in his book, the biologists claim that human culture is held by a genetic leash. That's all they talk about, Wilson, right? So, and then this writer, whoever his writer is, they say that this metaphor needs revision, which means that this writer feels that he or she is a better biologist than Edward Wilson, because Wilson is the person who came up with this metaphor of seeing human culture as being held on genetic leash. And this writer, whoever he or she is, they say that this metaphor needs revision, and they come up with a better solution that they think is a better solution, right? So we can't really infer that Wilson's theory is scientifically superior. Okay, we could say that it's scientifically superior, but we can't be very sure of this. Yes, C can't be ruled out. But how about D? See, okay, let's go option by option. Best explained, that's wrong, because we know that new evidence from suggests that it's more complex than what Darwin or Mendel thought. So A is wrong. Mendel's theory of inheritance underestimates. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to go, sir. So I
Yeah,
just
sure. All the best. All the best. Good luck for your exam on Sunday and all that. Bye. Bye.
thank you so much, sir. Good evening and thank you.
Yeah. Bye. Good evening. Bye. Right. So, and we know that B is wrong because it says Mendel's theory of underestimates evolution. No, Wilson's theory is right. It could be right. It could be seen as slightly more advanced than that, but we can't be okay. We can't rule C out. Absolutely, I accept. A and B are kind of absurd, but C can't be ruled out. Now, how about D? Darwin's theory of natural selection cannot fully explain evolution. I think D is we can be absolutely sure of that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, C, there is an element of doubt. C is very convincing. And had D be something, had D be something else like can explain instead of cannot, then I'd go for C, 100%, no doubt. But because it's cannot, I think that's we can be absolutely sure of that, and therefore we can mark D. Okay, and now 23. Which of the following, if found to be true, would negate the main message of this passage? Would negate. Okay, so the main essence is that evolution is more complex than the traditional view, which is obtained by mixing Darwin's theory and Mendel's theory, right? That's the main essence, that is very complex, and you must take into consideration aspects of epigenetic attachment and all that, and it's not just a mixing of Mendel's views and Darwin's views. Now let's look at the options here. A study affirming the influence of socio-cultural markers on evolutionary processes. That won't undermine, because the writer said that socio-cultural marker is a kind of a benchmark. Okay, so I don't think that is going to undermine. A study highlighting the criticality of epigenetic inheritance to evolution. Again, not very sure. A study indicating the primacy of ecological impact on human adaptation. Again, I'm not very sure. A study affirming the sole influence of natural selection and inheritance on evolution. If this is true, then it certainly is going to undermine, right? If we are able to, if a certain study is able to confirm that just natural selection and inheritance alone, which is to say Darwin's theory and Mendel's theory alone, sufficient to explain evolution, then there's no need to, then the whole research conducted by the Emery, this thing is going to be undermined, right? The whole thing is going to fall apart. So I think that the right answer is D. Okay. So again, I think 24 and 25, I leave it to you. And I think 25 is a wrong question. I just noticed that, and I think I didn't have time, so I think we'll just get 25 off. I'm sorry for that. I didn't change that. I think we'll stop. Okay, I think we'll do 24. Just one question. So what do you think 24 could be? So the passage uses the metaphor of the dog walker to argue that evolutionary adaptation is most comprehensively understood as being determined by what? So here they say that the metaphor
Or
needs
is it
division.
B?
B for bucket.
Yeah.
Okay, any other answer? Okay, so I think that just to improve post-class interaction, so 24 and the last two questions here, 19 and 20, I won't give you the answer. I think you can come back to me either on the WhatsApp pages of your respective centers, or on the Twitter page, or you could WhatsApp me, or you could email me. So I think these three questions, we'll leave it for later. At any rate, I think tomorrow, I think we'll have it put up on your WhatsApp things. So I think we'll stop here. Okay, so if you have an exam on Sunday, all the best. And also good luck with your exam, and good luck. Bye.
Sir, is there a WhatsApp group?
Not specifically for verbal abilities, I think. But
Oh, okay.
I suppose you could, I think you can just use your respective WhatsApp centers, but yeah, I get it. I think it won't be interactive. I suppose it'll be just you and your center. Yeah, I think we'll see if we can get a WhatsApp group just for English, just
Okay,
for verbal
sir.
abilities. So I
Yeah.
think we'll try and do that.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, sure. All the best. All the best. Yeah, bye. Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Bye.